Oh, here are our people right here.
Connor, give me a call later on. I got an issue that I was going to talk to the commissioner about.
Sure thing. All right. Jeff, you're up here with me. How are you? Sorry.
No problem. All right, it's now 2:01. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be joined here with the DPW committee in regards to our Veo scooter program that we have here in the city of Syracuse. Happy to be joined by President Pro Temp Hogan, Councilor Nave, Councilor Williams, Connor, and Jeff from Veo. We're glad to have you here today. We'll get straight to the point. I don't foresee this meeting being too long. We just want to talk about the promises that were made when we had a revisit of the Veo program here in the city of Syracuse and what that would look like in the near future, potentially moving forward. So how you want to start with some questions first? And then,
Yeah, I think, I realize you're pinch hitting for Eric, who's still on paternity leave.
And for Neil, same consideration.
Neil, I didn't realize Neil was out.
Yeah.
Good. Some of the agreements that we got to last November, December were around the tip-over technology, the AI, the opportunity zones, and kind of increasing participation and ridership for the Access program. The last report I got from Eric was early on in the season, and for the Access program, he gave me about 3% of rides, which was a similar figure to the prior year. And we look at micromobility as being part of the transportation landscape, and we hear statistics about 1 in 4 families doesn't have access to a vehicle. Your survey data that is provided often talks about individuals not having access to a vehicle. And kind of the mismatch or misalignment between the number of rides given to individuals in the low-income programming and the claims of, no car in household and no access to vehicle. Mm-hmm. So those are, in terms of our the contract renewal, those were the 4 points that were made, and I'd like to revisit each of those.
Sure. So let me just start. Connor Muldoon, Chief Operating Officer. So Veo is, as you identified, Counselor, a micromobility service that is a very important part of our transportation landscape. About 26% of our households do not have access to a vehicle, and my colleague, friend, Jeff from Veo can talk a little bit more about some specifics of the program, but also want to identify that this is a program that serves city employees as well. I just heard from Commissioner Fordock at DPW that a number of sanitation workers use this program every day to get to the DPW site, which is not, by nature of its location on the DPW campus, not terribly well accessed by public transportation. So not only is this serving residents, but also our employees at City Hall as well.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's arguing the utility of the program and the concept of micromobility program. It's more the details of the way it plays out within our city.
Great. I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thank you all for having me and the opportunity to come speak with you, hear your questions and concerns, and
Green light.
provide this update. So very appreciative for that. And so I suppose, Counselor, if I may ask, would you like me to sort of run through kind of a general set of updates? Would you like me to respond to specific questions? How would you like to proceed here?
Good. We can do the updates first, and then we'll go to specific questions after that.
Absolutely. So yeah, as Councilor Williams mentioned, our renewal at the end of last season and prior to this year, sort of stipulated several areas in which Veo service was meant to evolve and essentially improve. And so happy to talk through those here. The council already mentioned a handful of them. I have a few more. In fact, for the first, this updated scope of work contemplated us Veo paying fees to the city for the privilege to operate here in Syracuse. We talked quite a bit about tip-over detection, have some very good updates on that, and something I'll be able to stress and answer questions around is it is detection, it is not prevention. And so when a vehicle is seen as tipped over on the sidewalk following a ride, that does not mean that particular piece of technology is failing or did not work or is not on. It is meant to alert our team as to the presence of the tipped over vehicle without necessitating a report from anyone.
So with that statement there, what is the response time from the alert from the system, from the Veo Bike to your system to let you know that that particular device is tipped over? So that way somebody can adequately respond to that to make sure that it's done, because that's
So
a major concern to you.
The update sort of flashes into our system essentially instantly. And then this year, we have a median response time of just over 5 hours without requiring a single report. And that's compared to last year when we had a median response time when we had this technology kind of running in the background, but it was not part of the team's kind of daily flow and work schedule. Our median response time last year was 16 hours. And so we've seen a huge drop in our responsiveness, and I have specific numbers I can share with you. The councilor also mentioned kind of the refreshed focus on equity, really vitally important. I'm really happy to share that relative to last year, that the average cost of our ride has dropped when just about everything else in the world is getting more expensive. This week, we are drawing and launching the opportunity zones we discussed, and so needing no pre-enrollment, means testing, or anything like that. Riders will be eligible for a discount upon their destination in several key areas around the city. Want to stress that the map I'm going to show, or the map I have available, is a starting point only, not a fully baked product. The virtual parking coach, also happy to provide an update here. That was probably kind of the highest build item. Certainly a lesson learned for me that, A, I'm not a software engineer, and B, an opportunity for me to potentially, couch my words a little more closely. The good news on the virtual parking coach, and to elaborate, that is the technology that provides constraints around the rider at when they're taking their end trip photo. It's a live AI-powered tool that kind of scans the background. That integration with our existing system has proven more challenging than anyone, myself, people who are expert software coders or anyone else thought. And this is not a Syracuse-specific problem. This is something that's been delayed just about everywhere: Washington, D.C., Columbus, Santa Monica, and Los Angeles, in Berkeley, where I live. It's been a challenge. The good news is there is like very real light at the end of the tunnel, and so much so that I was literally, part of the reason I'm sweaty and ran in here at 1:59 is I was out on the sidewalk testing it on your sidewalks as we speak, immediately prior to this, and I'm confident to say that this tool will be turned on in Syracuse by the middle of the month. There are multiple models. We have had kind of the most basic model running in the background for most of the year, called the guidance model. That simply detects is there a vehicle present or not.
So that's all it does, or does it have any other features? Remind us.
That one particular base model, all it does is detect if a vehicle is present, and that's by design. And that, I'll be perfectly clear, the intention there was to operate that model in Syracuse for 3 weeks. The challenges we encountered integrating it into our system, we kept that active, but we've operated it for much longer in this market than we expected to. The other good news that I'll be able to share is even that piece of technology alone improved rider behavior. We saw about a 10% increase in compliance among riders actually showing the vehicle in their end trip photo, with that simple requirement, and no kind of active enforcement around it, because the model is not built to support that active enforcement. And so the development of the muscle memory per se is working. But I take absolute full ownership over the fact that, I didn't anticipate the integration challenges that we experienced, and I apologize for that. But I remain truly optimistic about the use case, the timeline, most importantly, and the outcomes. And then the last piece, last kind of major bucket, I think, from the renewal last year was the kind of a formalizing of the expectations around cure times and things like that relative to public complaints. We're very strong here. Our operations manager, Paul Colbrufo, lives in Syracuse, runs the team, is the boots on the ground. An enormous credit to him and his team. They're curing tickets on average in less than 2 hours when they receive them, and many more within an hour or even sooner than that. I want to stress part of the reason we've invested in this technology I've already discussed here. We don't want the burden to be on the public to report a vehicle. I want to be as clear as I can about that. But inevitably, when someone is a bad actor, whether they're a rider of ours or someone who walks by and kicks a row of scooters down, of course, it is our responsibility to manage those things. So I have lots of specifics behind all of that, but I've been speaking for a while here, and so I'm happy to pause for questions.
I would, again, ask you to address the equity program,
excuse me, yes.
the ridership percentage, and also want to throw in a positive point. Part of that agreement was also a revenue sharing agreement that I didn't mention, you didn't mention, so we actually have money coming to the city.
Absolutely, and I think, Counselor, on that note, due to the popularity of the program, I think we're forecasting to pay considerably more in fees than we probably did at the outset. Huge credit to Paul, but of course, folks are voting with their feet here. And I would say, there was a number you and I kind of kicked around. We're probably pacing to pay nearly 50% more than expected. So the equity program.
So it's like a
I guess
revenue sharing.
access program rather than opportunity zones.
Yes. So the good news there is we've actually essentially doubled our ridership enrolled and riding in that program relative to the same period last year. And so we're about 93% up on a riding member as opposed to someone who enrolls but does not ride. We're about 93% up relative to March through August 4th last year.
From where to where? Because, relative increases are well and good, but if it's 1% to 2%, we have 100% increase, and it still isn't serving the population with the intention that it had.
Have that. It's the slide. Yeah, we went from slightly over 100 riding access members to 278, so nearly 300 now.
Sir, how many overall?
About 20,000 unique riders.
So 300 out of 20,000. If I do the math on that, it's not a very big number. 1.5%. Yep.
So what is the
and
revenue?
again, I'd like to point out the misalignment between the stats we provided earlier of 25% of families don't have access to a vehicle, yet 1.5% of our riders are participating in the access program.
I mean, that's absolutely fair criticism. I will also note that, the access program is kind of shaped very specifically for folks who qualify for, certain public benefits. There are a lot of folks who, I think fairly could be considered kind of needs, resources stressed, perhaps, and who don't actually, though, qualify, who, for any number of reasons, I think anyone, I think probably the familiarity with the roadblocks to those things in this room are more appreciated than anywhere else. And so I would also note, though, that our membership category as a whole, which also includes our Veo Plus program, which provides on balance about a 25% ride discount, and our Veo Commuter program have also essentially exploded. I mean, we're 46% on all memberships. We're up 46% year over year. We're at 2,100 Veo Plus members, 600 Veo Commuter members. And so just to put that in perspective, that Veo Commuter member for, I think, about $15 a week can ride, if they take their 2 rides every day that they're entitled to, that nets out to about $1 a ride. And so it is not means tested. It is not like the capital V, capital A Veo Access program, but it is an extraordinarily low cost way to ride on the platform.
Do we have an overlay of that with census tract or zip code data?
I don't in front of me, but I'm happy to chase it down.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Jeff, I know the 1.5% may feel like a small number. Do you have any benchmarks from other communities with similar equity programs that we could compare that to?
We can certainly provide. I mean, I will say that the only market where we're currently operating where that is radically out of step, and I would say and by that I'm benchmarking at maybe 4% of our unique riders would be out of step, would be Washington, D.C., and that is because Washington, D.C. mandates an exceptionally generous program, and also is otherwise a very high-cost program for us. But in exchange for mandating that highly generous benefit, the district provides all of our fees back to us if we hit certain ridership and mileage benchmarks. And so, it's $120 per vehicle per year, and for every 1% of all of our miles traveled, for 1% of all of our miles traveled, we get 10% of our permit fees back. And since that's not capped at a percentage basis, we have a 3,000 and some vehicle fleet in Washington, D.C., times $120 per vehicle per year. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in rebates that the district is providing in exchange for a highly generous program.
So just so that I understand, a completely different approach to a program with performance metrics and where the district, Washington, D.C., is essentially providing funding to entice those sorts of riders. So, and in that scheme, it's 4%, whereas if we're at 1.5% in a very different structure, 1.5% is in line potentially with some of your other markets.
Yes. And I would say, just to be totally clear and to not risk, speaking out of school, I would venture a pretty comfortable guess that access ridership in DC is higher than 4%. I'm just setting that as sort of the threshold of like what might be considered in one ballpark versus another.
Let me ask you this: for the access program, to the qualified people that are able to use it, how do you let them know that this is available to them? What's your marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's primarily done through channels in our app. We actually just launched a new feature I'm very excited about called Veo Connect. That is kind of an in-app pop-up. Typically, we will use things like push notifications and the like. Though push notifications disappear, unfortunately. The Veo Connect feature that is new literally this week essentially lives in the app. So it's programmable with whatever information, also can be used for much more rote things like, there's a special event downtown, these streets are closed, there'll be a no ride zone in effect sort of thing, but can also be used and will be used for things like Veo Access and Veo Commuter, and like letting folks know that there are different ways to ride. And so because the entire kind of life cycle of the rider is in the app, that is going to be the best way to do it. But of course, we also, we use our website, we use social media, and we show up at events. Paul is fantastic about scouting out events where we will have a tent, a table, we'll give away helmets, and swag and have information for people on the spot. And last but not least, anytime someone contacts our customer support team about any, kind of, again, very mundane, could be a very mundane ride issue, it's that customer support team that handles Veo access enrollment. And so that kind of exchange and exposure is an opportunity as well.
And how do you handle language issues?
So we have folks on our team that speak both Spanish and different dialects of Chinese. Primarily, our website also translates to Spanish and simplified Chinese. And our app, again, really putting the focus there, essentially will translate to whatever the background language setting is on your phone.
What is our revenue? What's the amount of money we made this year compared to last year? What's our revenue?
So far we've paid the city, the invoice we paid is about slightly over $14,000. We've booked through the end of June. We're still closing July's books.
So we made $14,000. And the reason why I asked you because we have not received any reports that we thought we were going to have, updated reports financially.
The reports that have been, I think shared with the Public Works team, and I guess I'll be honest, Counselor, I can't really speak to the kind of internal workings of the city's payment receipt process. We received the first quarter invoice and it's been paid, and then I believe. I don't actually know that we've received the second quarter invoice yet.
Because right now, the city's getting 15 cents an hour, which is pretty cheap. It's pretty cheap, really, right now. That's my point. And I think one of the advantages of having the Veo bikes is that you don't have to worry about regulations. If you are a bicycle rider, you make sure that you're licensed. You make sure you have a helmet. Make sure that you use your signals. When you're on a bike, there's really no regulations. And I've seen people the way they drive in and out of traffic. They don't have to wear a helmet. There's no really regulations. And if, God forbid, that they get hurt, they get in an accident, well, they won't be held responsible. It's going to be the other person. Now, correct me if I'm wrong in saying that, though.
So, respectfully, I will.
Okay.
I don't believe to ride a personal bike, it is the law in New York that you must wear a helmet, at least if you're over 18, which is the same for Veo. We don't allow riders under 18 per user agreement.
They do. I see them. I've yet to see one person follow the law, wearing a helmet, following the law, making the right turns, continue to run in and out. I'm going this way, and they're coming towards me, and they zigzag. The person's doesn't have a driver's license. They don't understand. I saw a child, 10-year-old, on Wadford Street. So again, he said, yeah, go for a joyride, have good fun. Okay, God forbid it gets killed, but I just hope that the driver of the vehicle has pretty good insurance. That's what I'm emphasizing.
I can provide our monthly reports that the DPW team has been receiving. I had been under the impression that the council had been receiving those monthly reports. They include rides per day by vehicle type, reported safety incidents, membership data, and some performance metrics for how quickly the Veo team has responded to
Thank you,
complaints.
because when I attend meetings, neighborhood meetings, this is the issue that comes up, though. These safety issues come up, and I can't flub it. I need to know. Thank you.
Yep.
Speaking of safety issues, what is the contract with Veo or your terms and conditions as far as the safety inspections of your vehicles that you have?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that
How
question?
often are the scooters, bikes, and all those inspected for safety features?
Yeah, I think it depends. Actually, Paul, are you able to?
Sure.
Can I have
we
my
can-
colleague
yeah,
come up?
yeah.
Hi. As far as inspecting the scooters, so we bring everything in at the end of the year around Christmas time. Bring everything in fix everything that's wrong with every scooter, quality control it, and then we quality control it all again in the spring when it goes out, and then each scooter is brought in periodically and given a full quality control, and then every scooter is also brought in whenever there's an issue. So there's 3 ways we kind of flag a scooter. One is the scooters have a self-diagnostic system, kind of like a check engine light on your car. So they will flag us. They'll go into, we call it error mode, and that will mean the customers cannot rent it, and it will pop up on our map saying we need to pick it up, bring it in, let our mechanics quality control it. We have 5 different mechanics. I'm training a 6th right now. I came right from there.
That's current?
I'm sorry?
That feature is current?
Yeah, it's active right now.
Interesting.
Happened to me one time.
Yeah, and then secondly, each scooter has a customer service number on it. If somebody calls, has a bad ride, for whatever reason, headlights out, whatever reason it might be, they call customer service. They will put the scooter into error mode, and then we will go pick it up. And then the third is we have a 5-star rating system where a person can rate their ride, and it will ask you if you had any difficulties, anything when you end your ride. And every morning I come in, I look at scooters that took abnormally short rides, under 2 minutes, and I look at anything that had a low ratings, anything less than 5 stars. And then I will put together a list of, these scooters look like, there might be something wrong with them. And then I send my team out and they go and test each scooter that I kind of have flagged. And if something's wrong, we bring it in. So there's beginning of the year, there's end of the year, there's a periodic during the year, and then we have those kind of 3-prong testing system as we go.
How many scooters do we have available?
That's a good question.
I've just
Should be no more than 3,500, right?
Just because I've been looking at the data in anticipation of this meeting, we've had about 1,300 scooters over the course of the season. I will say just one other thing, Paul, I think that's also worth mentioning is every time a technician touches a vehicle for any reason, battery swap, just turning it upright, you name it, they do a brake check, they do a throttle check, make sure sort of the 2 most important components that make sure that the wheels are, they'll kind of roll it along, make sure that the most vital components for the safety of the rider are in working order before they depart that vehicle. So there's kind of these baseline checks that are happening on hundreds, if not thousands of scooters a day and per week.
So the AI program that is going to be implemented at some point during this month, you said, right? Mm-hmm. So that will tell you right away where the scooters are left?
So we know where the scooters are. Every scooter has a GPS unit in it, and the point of the AI tool is to actually prevent the rider from leaving the scooter in a state that is not appropriate. And so that could be sort of blocking a sidewalk right in the middle. That could be tipped over. It could be in a doorway.
So if they do actually do that, what happens?
So the rider will be subject to a violation, for one. It provides a much more detailed kind of tracking of each of these accounts. Again, no longer relying on a report. And 2, it will instruct the rider in the app before they can end their trip on how to correct their parking attempt to comply. And so it will quite literally tell you, you're blocking the sidewalk, please move to the side. Your vehicle is tipped over, please turn it upright. Obviously, of course, reflective of the condition that the tool perceives, and then will drive the rider to correct it. And obviously these, what I think will be really fascinating and what I'm eager to show council and is that, I think we have the expectation that we'll actually be able to see kind of corrected behavior on a ride by ride and parking attempt by parking attempt basis. We're not going to, of course, be able to show all, tens of thousands of each ride, but we'll be able to show some really great examples of riders who probably thought they, were just in a hurry or whatever, but, took the corrective action as they were instructed to do. I do really genuinely believe most people who ride us with any frequency don't want to be jerks, like they're running late for a meeting or something like that. Obviously, not everyone is so kind, but I think most people are decent.
So one last question. So you said that from the moment that you know where the vehicles are left, it takes somewhere, around 5 hours to turn around and pick them up. So that's not 100% of the times we get it, but what percent of the times are you able to actually really do that?
So I want to just clarify one point. The 5-hour number, that was specific just for the tipped over vehicles that our system perceives. That is not when we actually get a report. When we get a report of a vehicle, say from the city staff or just to our customer support line from a resident and neighbor, our response time is actually quite a bit less. It's just over 2 hours. And so when we get a specific report, like we really do kind of as best as we can, drop what we're doing and hightail it over there, especially so if there's any indication, whether it's in writing, whether it's in a photo, that the vehicle is causing some type of ADA violation. We get lots of reports that are kind of some version of, I don't like how that scooter's looking at me. And, I want to be very clear, we find those retrievals very important. I think we can, though, probably all agree they're not as important as something like an ADA violation, a scooter that's reported in the street, something like that. And so we do stack rank prioritization. And so the reports we receive are at the top of the pile. The tipped over vehicles are below that because we don't know that they have some other type of exigent condition attached to them.
In the tradition of the citizens calling the city for like everything, how many calls do we get to City Line about?
I don't have the number available, but I can get that for you.
I tell you, my phone gets a whole lot of them.
If you
Yeah,
I get pictures too.
yeah, me too. That's why I asked the question.
I can tell you, and I can tell you, the only times I ever get any kind of complaints is about the vehicles. And I've got less, as a matter of fact, since this program's started, so. I mean,
Pardon me, sir, I didn't.
I said I haven't got as many as I anticipated lately. But I got them all over my neighborhood usually because I live around the corner from Coleman's.
We get pictures from our constituents, when they're left, like thrown and they're in the middle of something,
And just to answer
sometimes even close to the street.
I apologize for interrupting.
Yeah, no,
Counselor.
go ahead.
Just Councilor Hogan, to answer your question, I just heard from Paul over here that he receives complaints that are forwarded to him from City Line on average of once or twice per week.
Okay. I think one of the issues is that they're heavy. They're tough to move. I mean, to move them
They
off
are.
like the city right away or the sidewalk or whatever, so.
Yeah.
So what's the actual capacity for you to actually come out and pick up these things? I mean, do you have a 24/7 service that does that? How many people are in check?
We do.
Oh, go ahead. Yes, absolutely.
I think maybe there's a kind of a vocabulary screw up, that maybe miscommunication here. So if you picture it, right, we have over 1,000 scooters, and
1,300.
we're getting 3,000 to 4,000 rides a day. Okay, so every scooter is being ridden, give or take, right, a little under 3 to a little under 4 times per day, every day. So it's a constant motion thing. And the other thing is we're instructing our riders to park in the city right of way, which a lot of times is grass. So some of those times, like the kickstand will, if it's wet or something, the kickstand will kind of sink in a little. The scooters will fall down on their own. Sometimes, unfortunately, someone will just come down and push it over. So it is a constantly changing thing. It's not like there's a scooter tipped over, so let's go in 5 hours and it will still be there and we'll pick it up. I'm not really sure how that average kind of works, really, but I can.
How many scooters you need to go pick up to be able to send somebody to go get them?
So I have 4 vans. They are all in motion 24 hours a day, except for change of shift. Our average change of shift time right now is 24 minutes. So other than 3 24-minute intervals, those 4 vans are in motion 24 hours a day. And I split the city into 4 zones, give or take, north, south, east, and west. I assign one person to each zone. The zones are kind of shaped based on the ridership. So the higher the ridership, the smaller the area I will give, and the less the ridership, the bigger the area. And then I will give directions. This was partially Kevin helped me with. Partially is just I came up with myself from the complaints I was seeing, but I'll give them kind of a path to follow and just say, drive this path. If you want an example, I could actually read you. I don't know if you want me to get that granular with it, but I will give them a path and say, drive these streets, drive this path, pick up every scooter you see, and then go to your app. And our app will tell us every scooter that's in air, every scooter that has a low battery, every scooter that has been sitting for too long without anybody riding it, and then they will go and clean up all of that. And every scooter they touch, like if it's a battery, it goes in the van and it goes to a hub. We have about 50 hubs all around the city, and we fill them multiple times a day each, and they empty multiple times a day each.
So when it doesn't happen within that frame of time, because sometimes, we're only human, right?
Sure.
So when it doesn't really happen in that frame of time, then what happens? Do you still have it in your pipeline, or?
Right. Yeah. So
Because those are the photos and the calls we're getting, that these things have been there for 24 hours or for so many hours, and so we don't know what to tell them.
Okay. So the first thing I would tell them is that there's a phone number on each scooter, and that they should call it because.
But people are not going to stop and
So
look.
No one's
I can
doing
actually,
that.
we have a kind of a ready-made, kind of how to report graphic that's meant to be put on social media and things like that, that I'll happily follow up with after this meeting that, is, again, I don't pretend to believe this is a cure-all, but it is an easier way to consolidate that information than directing people to the vehicle. And so, I think you all, if I may ask for your assistance, have just more kind of reach and convening power, certainly into your communities, especially among non-riders than we do. And so if there are opportunities to put it in newsletters, to put on your website, just make it on hand for your, in your offices. That has been very helpful. I'll certainly supply that as quickly as I can after this conversation. Because, Paul, and forgive me for cutting you off here, we have every incentive to get those vehicles back as quickly as we can, because
we know
that's
that.
how we make money. And so our incentives really, really are aligned here. And so I think figuring out where they are, I will say if a vehicle, the batteries, if a vehicle isn't being ridden, the batteries last for a very long time. If the vehicle has been vandalized and destroyed, there is even a backup battery on the vehicle. And so if the main battery is stolen, say, we still have several days to track down the vehicle using the backup, because we really want to return and recover these things. And so we do have a fair bit of runway to go get them if the stars truly misalign and we miss it for quite a while. Like that vehicle is very rarely kind of lost to the ages.
Paul, I was going to ask a question. Paul,
Sure.
you get complaints from outside the city, like town of Salina? Because you can go into Salina from Lemoyne Ave. There's always piles of them. So I don't know if you get calls from them.
Like going towards Liverpool.
Mattydale. You're in Lemoyne Ave. You're a bridge, and that's where a lot of them end.
Yeah, so I will say where our service stops, right, you will get scooters that will pile up there because people will want to go to their destination somewhere in Mattydale. Let's say they live in Mattydale.
Bingham
They will
Road,
ride to the
Onondaga
edge
Road,
where the
all
scooter
of
shuts
that.
off, and then the scooter will stay where it is. We have a system for that So that also comes up on our map. We call it require retrieval. So when somebody rides right to the edge of the boundary or past it, because what happens is when you cross the line, the motor shuts off. So you can't go anymore. But the scooter doesn't come to a crashing halt or anything. That would be unsafe. So the motor shuts off, and you can go as far as you can glide at that point, which let's say it's, I don't know, 20 feet, whatever. Generally, the scooter will be there till we pick it up. So that automatically flags for us, and it comes up, and then we make a run, and we pick those up. But it absolutely is true that at the ends of our riding areas, especially if it's someplace where people really want to get to, scooters will pile up there. That is a part. We've tried to work with Central a little bit to extend a little bit beyond the city here and there in some spots that make sense. I think we had a pretty good success going into the Jamesville Wegmans, which is just outside the city, because that was a major pile-up spot where people would drive down James Street from like Eastwood just till the end, and then it's only like 100 yards past that to Wegmans. So they would try to get to Wegmans, and there'd be a big pile up there, and we were able to extend it so they could get to Wegmans.
Do you lose connection with the vehicles if they go outside of the?
The motor turns off of it. It'll announce to you that saying like you're about to leave the area. The motor will turn off, and then if you cross the line out of the city, it'll say you're out of the zone. The motor will turn off, and then it won't go. You can, like I said, the scooter won't come to a crashing halt because that would not be safe. But the motor's off, so it's not going to go anymore. So you get
Paul,
until it glides.
another person get on that scooter and go enter the city? Or
They
does
would
that-
have to push it back into the city. So if it's, let's say it's 10 feet past, they'd have to push it that 10 feet past,
okay.
and then it would turn on. But outside of the city, it will not turn on, which is why we flag them, because generally nobody's going to do that. We have to go pick those up.
Another thing we had discussed before, we got it to get places where they know where they can bring it back, like a hub.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Yeah, like I said, we have 50 around. I'm always eager to add more. It's great for us and for customers, because when we know where they're wanted, we put them there. Then customers have an organized place to find them. It's better for business, and it's better for keeping things clean. So I'm always open to suggestions, but we do have a lot of them.
What's the busiest time?
About 5 p.m. is our busiest
I would
time.
guess
Is a
something
commute home from work.
What time would you guys counsel?
2 a.m.
So
I'm just wondering,
that's actually, I certainly, that wouldn't have surprised me, but as Paul said, really from like 2 to 7 are kind of, where our bread is buttered here. And
it's
also,
like people returning from work, or
yeah, exactly, running out for something they forgot at the store, you name it. I'll also say that 75% of our rides take place on weekdays. So this is not a
That's amazing.
Saturday and Sunday kind of joyride activity here.
I think, I guess I'll kind of wrap it up with, in our conversations last year, I communicated concerns that I hear that likely everyone at the table hears around, where the vehicles are left throughout the community. And I think that in terms of where we got with the negotiations, I think that we wound up in a really great place. That being said, I think that part of our job is to hold our contractors and consultants accountable for promises being made. And I think that two of the biggest wins that we got as a city was the AI technology that, is, to no fault of your own, yet to come. And I think that was big, right? And 5 months after they came back to our streets, we still don't have it. And, I think more disappointing for me is the equity zone maps. I think probably anyone at the table, anyone in City Hall can give you a rough idea of where we might want to layer those equity zones, and the fact that 5 months later they're not up and running, and that's concerning to me. And I don't, in no manner do I think that you came here today making additional promises, but 5 months later we hear Yep, the maps are coming out next week, and the AI is coming out in a couple weeks, and it feels a little too convenient.
Absolutely, and like, entirely fair. Not what I was hoping to be saying here to you all. I will absolutely own that. I mean, the AI piece again. I do have some, I think, pretty good data. I have a video where I make a very odd cameo, but it's a pretty good example of what you can sort of expect. Of course, we'll share my entire. It's in a deck format, so we'll share that with the council after this conversation to give you a real sense with City Hall in the background what the technology is going to drive here. On the opportunity zones, again, entirely fair criticism. What I will say is that, and I could have certainly done a better job kind of bringing the city along here. There was just a bit of work, kind of legwork that needed to be done to make sure that as we're applying discounts for, trips that end in these zones, we're not having any type of conflict with, whether it be a membership or Veo Access rider or anything else. And so, I think, truly, like we have our geofence team drawing these zones in today. And so we are extremely close. I absolutely just should have done a better job kind of talking through with the city kind of what the expectation should be.
So you let us know like the moment it's up.
Indeed.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I don't.
You good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, any other statements you want to say, or?
I don't have any broad statements. There's one number I just wanted to talk through very quickly, because we talked about, I think the AI parking and tip over are really kind of, are going to be most powerful when they're used in conjunction with one another. The tip over feature has been active all year since day one when we relaunched. And I just want to put it into perspective a little bit. In all of last year, we had 62,000 recorded tip over events, 220 a day, roughly. This year, we're pacing ahead of that. We're pacing at 250 a day. And so season to date, we've already recorded over 37,000 tip over events. And that can be, and those events very specifically are measured when a vehicle is not in a ride. And so that actually, in large part, excludes riders ending their trip with the vehicle tipped over, unless they end their trip and then kick the vehicle over, which most riders, they want good quality vehicles. They don't want pieces of junk that are all busted up to ride. And so within that context, Hall's team has dropped the cure time, and I said this earlier, but I think it bears repeating, from a median time of 16 hours to a median time of just over 5 hours and 20 minutes. And so that's a 60-something% reduction, I think. I'm not in this business because I'm good at math. 66% improvement. And I think, so I did want to stress that has been, I think, a fantastic success, and a great credit to Paul and his team for sort of weaving that into how they proceed along their day.
All right. Well, I guess I'll conclude this meeting. Thank you all for coming. And if we have, we'll be looking forward to those emails and that data coming from you both. So thank you much.
And you'll send the reports, right?
Yes.
Yes, we'll do.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you.